everyone. My name's Deborah Krant, a longtime Litquake volunteer. On behalf of Litquake, thank you all so much for coming to Lit Crawl San Francisco from wherever you are on our globe. Tonight is the closing session of Litquake, San Francisco's literary festival, and we're in the midst of a virtual Lit Crawl, which is running and ran from 10:30 this morning till 10:30 tonight, San Francisco time, including 25 events and featuring 7 cities around the world. Our nonprofit festival is nearly 100% free and could not exist without the generosity of our individual donors. If you believe in keeping literature a key component of San Francisco's cultural landscape, please consider dropping us just a few dollars. Every bit helps. We accept donations on Venmo at Litquake, on PayPal at info@litquake.org, or directly on our website, litquake.org. After the event, you'll be asked to fill out a short survey. These surveys are really important to our efforts to keep the Lit Crawl free. Now, let's get started with our event, and I want to introduce you to your MC for this evening, Daniel Handler.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lit Crawl. An event that traditionally every year has all of us drinking in the streets of the Mission. And obviously this year is different, but I encourage everyone in the audience, as well as our performers, to drink enough that it feels like you're drinking and wandering around the Mission. Get going. This evening is a series of short readings about the end of the world. Who knows why someone thought that appropriate in these times? Personally, it just feels out of the blue for me that we would worry that the world was ending anytime soon. But in case you feel like getting in touch with your apocalyptic urge, I know I am, I hope you'll stay and listen to all of these swell readers while drinking an apocalyptic cocktail. I'm having the last word. I don't know when everyone else is drinking, except Lisa Brown, who is also having a last word, which is a beautiful garish green, suitable for Zoom events everywhere, and it's called The Last Word, which I think is apocalyptic enough. And speaking of Lisa Brown, she's our first reader. I've never picked up a piece of paper and read my wife's bio, but I'm going to now. It's kind of a thrilling experience for me. Lisa Brown is an illustrator, that's totally true. A writer, absolutely, and a cartoonist who no longer leaves her house, basically true. As none of her current superpowers are helpful as the world ends, her superpowers, as she lists them, are doodling, identifying minor celebrities, which is true, she's very good at that. She would like instead to be left alone to eat all the cookies for the duration. It's true, she loves cookies. Give it up for Lisa Brown.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, I have a little cheat sheet. You can't see it. As some of you know, I'm an anxious person. And my chronic anxiety has been pretty exciting lately because I feel completely vindicated. And that's very satisfying. So instead of worrying, I'll let everyone else worry because I've been worrying for years now. I just have been reading, and the worse things, the better, in terms of like dire situations. And so I'm going to read to you from one of my favorite dystopian apocalyptic novels. It's called Black Wave. It's by the incomparable Michelle T., who I love very much and I miss very much. And she is one of the most fabulous people writing today, and a powerful force for books and art in our community, even though she abandoned us for LA. She was a founding member of Sister Spit, which is, as everyone knows, a lesbian feminist spoken word and performance roadshow, and of Radar Productions, a San Francisco-based queer literary arts organization that you should absolutely check out because they're still doing wonderful things even now. So I think Michelle's, one of her superpowers, she has many, including tarot reading, but the one I want to talk about is she really is great at portraying San Francisco in the 1990s. And San Francisco in the 1990s, for those who don't know, was This particular San Francisco was gritty, it was boozy, it was queer, and I miss it a lot. So she's brilliant at memoir, and Black Wave reads like a memoir until it really, really, really doesn't. Except for now it does. So anyway, what you need to know before I read is I'm reading for a part where Michelle, the protagonist, is moving from San Francisco in the 1990s to LA, driven by her girlfriend, and it's about to be the end of the world. The heat in the truck's cab was grisly. California was on fire. And once out of San Francisco, the highway shimmered in the windshield like a mirage. The land on the margins was dry, even charred. The farmland decreased as they drove. The water was too ruined for effective farming, and the animals were out of whack. The bugs and the birds, the pests and pollinators. They drove past wide plowed fields whose sickly crops had been abandoned. "What do you think that was?" Michelle asked, staring at the mangled stalks, everything hay-colored beneath the brutal sun. Quinn shrugged and kept her eyes on the road. Michelle hadn't left San Francisco in 8 years, and Quinn, a native, never had. The ocean was a giant toilet lapping at San Francisco's edges, but mainly things were functioning. On the highway, Michelle felt alarmed at all the dead land. These towns were abandoned. A gas station had been torched, blackening everything around it in a wide, ruined circle. Michelle leaned back against the leather seat, her skin stuck hotly to it, suctioned with sweat. She watched the wasteland glide by on 405. Then, the cows. The cities of cows stretched out into this trashed landscape for miles, a pixelated black and white, their spotted backs blurring together until the sight of them all became something else entirely, a surrealist landscape, an M.C. Escher drawing referencing infinity. If you can hear some cowbells in the distance here, it's my dog with his collar. The smell was something to complain about for the first 20 minutes. It was as if their faces were being cruelly mashed into a vat of wet shit. The humidity rose as they entered the cow cities. The steam of the animals' sweat and breath and farts, the water systems churning to douse them, all of it changed the air, saturating it, carrying the stench. The sounds too, the dull bleats and moos. The cows continued alongside them forever. Cowschwitz, Quinn spoke. She had heard of this part of the drive. Her husband had warned her of it, gambled she'd become vegetarian by the time they drove out of it. The lovers tried various things to save them from the smell, such as cupping their hands over their faces and inhaling instead their own rank breath. Not that we know what that feels like now. Michelle lit cigarettes. She held a carton of chocolate milk over her mouth and nose like an oxygen mask, smelled sweetly sour candy before the stink of shit rushed back in. They breathed through their mouths, giving them the disgusting feeling of eating the smell. Their tongues rooted their gums, searching for the taste of cow dung. Eventually, they could no longer smell it. Despite the bovine landscape shifting toward the horizon, their collective motion like the swells of a gentle tide. It was creepy to know the horrible shit cloud was still with them, entering their bodies. They would try to locate it, pulling air through their noses the way Ziggy smoked her cigarettes, but they smelled nothing at all. And so they relaxed, succumbing to their body's merciful denial. Michelle allowed the incomprehensible landscape to fuck with her mind. The round-backed cows became a sort of sea. She then allowed the sea, emerging beneath the cliffs, to become a menagerie. The lumps of trash beneath the pudding waves taking the shapes of animals she'd seen in books and magazines. A thick gorilla, a wide-eared elephant, the spindly neck of a giraffe. The waves drew back and heaved forward, the nauseated contractions of someone poisoned. Michelle saw real buses and airplanes, shopping carts in the roof of a home, an old telephone pole strung with gunk. She unfocused her eyes and they became dinosaurs, sea monsters. Broken boats bobbed, abandoned, looking like ghostly pirate ships. Perhaps some of them were. Across it all, a web of oil stretched, like ebony lace or fishnet stockings. Michelle T, everybody, Black Wave.
Yes, I unmuted. Hooray! Give it up for Lisa Brown. You know, normally I don't like to say who my favorite writer is among people who are reading, but I mean, I'm only married to one of them so far. Next up, we have Tarja Pessilen, a writer and performer whose work has appeared in Salon, The Washington Post, and various anthologies. She's coming to us from Pennsylvania, where she's gone undercover in Trump country in a rental house full of coffee table books. She is so hungry to participate in Lit Crawl and Litquake. Please reach out to her from over the airwaves and welcome her as she reads. Give it up, please.
Thank you so much. You are right. I'm undercover here. It's stressful, but I've connected. I'm here. Tonight, I am reading The Algorax, inspired by Dr. Seuss's The Lorax, an environmental dystopian tale, if there ever was one. All right, I'll jump right in. At the far end of town, where the grickle grass grows, and no birds ever sing, excepting old crows like Mitch McConnell, is the street of the lifted Algorax. What was the Algorax, and why was it there? And why was it lifted and taken somewhere? The old Trumpler still lives here. Ask him. He knows. Oh, you'll see the Trumpler. Just knock at his door. He stays in his lurkum, always lurking for more. He lurks in his lurkum, cold under the roof, where he makes his own truth out of bluff puffered moof. And on special dank midnights in August, he spies his tower and speaks until how Algorax was lifted away. He'll tell you, perhaps. We can't him to up. Of course, I'll tell you, but you'll have to pay. On the end of a rope, he lets down a tin pail. You have to toss in all your morals and a diamond on great, great, great discount from Zales. He grunts, I will call you by megaphone so that my voice is really big and really loud. It all started way back when the parks were still green, the air wasn't smoky, and water was clean, and the song of the Janes, both Fonda and Goodall, rang out in space, and I felt I could really take advantage of this place. And I first saw the trees, the truffula trees, the money-colored tufts of the truffula trees, mile after mile in the New Jersey breeze. And by trees, I mean environmental policy that I could roll back and disable for sweet, silky profit. I felt a great leaping of joy in my heart. I knew what I'd do and how I would start by pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement. In no time at all, I had taken over a small shop called the EPA. Then I chopped down a regulation with one chop, and with great skillful hyperbole and great speedy speed, I took the soft tuft and I knitted a thneed, which kept businesses and the climate really, really warm. The instant I finished, I heard a gazump. I looked. I saw something out of the tree chopped down. I don't know if I can. He was tall and old and brown and mossy, and he spoke with a voice that had a slight Tennessee accent. Mister, he said with a very slow, drawn-out lilt, I speak for the trees and the air and the stuff the earth built. I speak for the earth because the earth has no tongue. And I'm asking you, sir, at the top of my lungs, what in tarnation are you doing? Look, Algorax, there's no cause for alarm. I'm going to replace the clean power plan. I'm doing no harm. There's no need to report toxic emission or safeguard communities from pollution. Who cares about greenhouse gas? Come now, don't be an ass. And in no time at all, in the White House factory building, was fulfilled. We were all knitting thneeds, just as busy as bees, to the sound of the chopping of environmental policy. I quickly invented my super axe deregulator, which everyone loved. They told me so on Twitter. But that Algorax told me he not only speaks for the trees, but also polar bears, Floridians, birds, and bees. And that thanks to my toxicity, gas, and hot air, the water is rising, so no one will be spared. I, the Trumpler, felt sad. But business is business, and business must grow, regardless of losing coastline, you know. I meant no harm. Well, not a lot of harm, but I had to grow bigger, so bigger I got. I biggered the factories, I biggered the carbon, I screwed over Alaska and all conservation. Then again he came back, that soft-spoken but incredibly persistent Algorax. Trumpler, he cried with a crefulous croak. Trumpler, you're making such smogulous smoke. The American sage grouse can't sing a note. I've suggested our migratory birds go to Switzerland until they get the word. What's more, snapped the Algorax, his dander was really up. You're glumping the water of the salmon and smelt. You're causing our glaciers and ice caps to melt. You're using blasts from seismic air guns to disorient and kill marine animals by the ton. You reversed a ban, you dirty man, to bait and kill bears with grease-soaked donuts. Now that just isn't fair. It's inconvenient, but it's the truth. I'm here to preach, but I won't be uncouth. And then, well, I got mad. I got terribly mad. I yelled at the Algorax, now listen here, Dad. All you do is yap, yap, and say bad, 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 bad. Well, I have my rights, sir, and I'm telling you, I intend to go on doing just what I do. And for your information, Algorax, I'm figuring on biggering and biggering and biggering and biggering. And at that very moment, we heard a loud whack, the rising water hitting the shore with a smack. Is this when the sky will actually fall? With the very last environmental policy of them all? The Algorax said nothing, just gave me a glance as he lifted himself by the seat of his pants, and he heisted himself and took leave of this place, through a hole in the smog without leaving a trace. And all that the Algorax left here in this mess was a small pile of rocks with one word, unless. Whatever that meant, I just couldn't guess. Unless I spray tan more, unless I stop waging environmental war, unless the sage grouse nests in my hair, unless I give two shits and a care. Then from the clouds came the Algorax's voice. People, he said, it's all about choice. Unless you vote, you entire lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. So cast your own vote, treat it with care, give it clean water and feed it fresh air, grow a forest of votes, protect it from assholes that hack. Then you may get the earth and America back. Thank you.
Assholes who hack. If there is no greater summation of the evil we're up against, I just don't know what is. Fantastic. Next off, we have someone who, judging from her background, is in an underground lair of supervillains plotting something either in favor of or against the world. Janine Kovac is a writer, a teacher, a mom, and a ballet dancer. I'm only one of those things. Currently living on a fault line. If she could take one superpower to aid her survival during the apocalypse, it would be the power to take a nap anywhere, a power that currently eludes her. No one's going to be napping when they hear this reading by Janine Kovac. Give it up!
Hello, hello. This lit crawl feels like every other lit crawl, except I'm not wearing pants. So I'm going to read from Lagoon, Nnedi Okorafor, and I think you could take a whole shelf of her books and on vacation and the whole family would have something to read, because she does middle grade and she does YA and she does adult, and this is adult, or just dystopian for grown-ups, I should say, not adult. Welcome to Lagos, Nigeria. The city takes its name from the Portuguese word for lagoon. The Portuguese first landed on Lagos Island in the year 1472. Apparently, they could not come up with a more creative name. Nor did they think to ask one of the natives for suggestions. And so the world turns, masked by millions of names, guises, and shifting stories. It's been a beautiful thing to watch. My designs grow complicated. Only 2 people on the beach witnessed the watery abduction of Adora and the 2 men. One was a young boy. Just before the boom, his guardian had been standing several feet away, having a heated discussion with the owner of one of the shacks selling mineral, mainly Orange Fanta and Coca-Cola. The boy was staring at something else. His stomach was growling, but he forgot about his hunger for the moment. In the moonlight, he couldn't clearly see the creature, but as it walked out of the water, even he knew it wasn't human. All his mind would register was the word smoke, at least until the creature walked up the quiet beach and stepped into the flickering light from one of the restaurants. By then, it had become a naked, dark-skinned African woman with long black braids. She reminded the boy of a woman whose purse he'd once stolen. She'd stood there for several moments, watching the three people who came from three different directions and ended up standing before each other. Then the strange woman creature silently ran back to the water and dove in like Mami Wata. Rubbing his itchy head, the boy decided that he was seeing things, as he often did when he grew confused. He flared his nostrils and breathed through his mouth as he tried to focus back on reality. The great booming sound rattled his brain even more. Then came the wave that looked like the hand of a powerful water spirit. The boy saw it take the three people, one who was a woman and two who were men. And just before it did, he saw one of those people throw a black bird into the air that caught itself and flew into the night. Nevertheless, he could not speak or even process any of this information, for he was both mute and mentally handicapped. He stared at the three people and where they had been and now were not. Then he smiled, saliva glistening in the left corner of his mouth, because somewhere deep in his restrained brain, he had a profound understanding that things around him were about to change forever. And he liked this idea very much. The other witness of the abduction was a young woman named Fiaso. She was a hard-working, book-reading secretary by day and a prostitute by night. She too noticed the creature woman who emerged from the water, and she too thought the word smoke. But she also thought shapeshifter. "I am seeing the devil," she whispered to herself. She turned away and dropped to her knees. She was wearing a short, tight skirt, and the sand was warm and soft on her shins and kneecaps. She prayed to the Lord Jesus Christ to forgive her for all her sins and take her to heaven, for surely the rapture was here. When the boom came, she shut her eyes and tried to pray harder. The pain of death would be her atonement. But deep down, she knew she was a sinner, and there was nothing that would ever wipe that away. She got to her feet and turned around just in time to see the woman and two men snatched up by a huge fist of water. Just before it happened, one of them had released something black and evil into the air, like a poison. She stood there, staring at the spot where they had been and no longer were. She waited for the water to take her too. The fist had to be the hand of Satan, and she was one of the biggest sinners on earth. Oh, the things she'd done so many, many times. Sometimes it was just to fill her empty belly. She trembled and started sweating. Her armpits prickled. She hated her tiny skirt, tight tank top and red pumps, the itchy straight-haired brown wig on her head. When nothing else happened, she went to the nearest bar and ordered a cranberry and vodka. She would anxiously tell the next John, a businessman from the United States, what she had seen. He wasn't interested in anything she had to say. He was more interested in filling her mouth than watching it flap with useless, dumb words. But she wouldn't forget. And when it all started, she would become one of the loudest prophets of doom in Lagos. Thank you. The end.
Wow. I have to say, that was the most lit crawl experience that I've had so far, which was like taking a sip of drink and then being like, shapeshifter? Wait a minute. I got to hear the rest. That was an authentic lit crawl experience. Thank you, Janine. Next up, we have someone who I'm a great admirer of her work. And right before we all went public on this, we were, jabbing about current events. And she said that she was tired about hearing about the penises of entitled men, which is strange because her debut novel, the book of the unnamed midwife, won the 2014 Philip K. Dick Award. Wait a minute. Please welcome from Oakland, California, across the bridge, in the epicenter of culture that we in San Francisco are mere wasted suburbs of. Please welcome Meg Ellison. Give it up.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining. Thank you for introducing, and thanks for emceeing, Daniel. You've been wonderful. It's been a distinct privilege to appear with this group. And in keeping with that privilege, I'm going to read something original. This is a collection called Tiny Nightmares. It's a recently published anthology, and I'm the very first story in it. It is mostly dystopian nightmares. It's funny, if you put out a call for writers in 2019 and ask them what they're most afraid of, it's not monsters under the bed. Let's go ahead and say that. So the name of this story, this very short story, is Guess. Nobody likes it when we're right. Not the guess your age guy, not the guess your weight guy, and certainly not me. The age guy, well, he's never right, because people are more likely to play along if he guesses they're 10 years younger than they are. He loses bullshit 8-cent prizes made in China, and he keeps taking $1 from every idiot in his line. The weight guy is right more often. He gets away with it because skinny people are proud of themselves, and fat people are a source of entertainment, no matter what he says. He's right, he's wrong, they're still fat. Then they come around to me, and I'm never wrong. Sometimes I think I can do some good. Whenever I say lung cancer, the person I'm talking to says they'll quit. If I say liver failure, it goes the same way. The one guy I told it would be a plane crash said he'd never fly again, but I don't know if he stuck by it. I also don't know if a plane crashed into his house while he was asleep. But what about the ones I tell it'll be a car accident? What the hell are they supposed to do? When Dad did it, he told people to try to take comfort in heart failure and knowing how the end will come. It's the one thing in life you can count on, he'd say. And now you'll know its name when it shows up. Isn't that the definition of comfort? Familiarity. Dad didn't do it at the carnival. Dad had a real job. He'd do it for friends and family. He'd do it a year before it happened, or 20. He was right about everybody, including himself, pancreatic cancer. After he was gone, I saw that he was right about his sister, his best friend, our dog. That's how I know that I'm never wrong. I don't know how we count as fun, us guessers. It isn't a game. There's no clown to shoot with a water pistol, and there's no ring to toss. The prizes are shitty, and the truth is nobody's friend. And tonight smells like candy corn and puke, and this town is like every other. Patty, 48, 287 pounds, will die of complications from an amputated foot. She leaves with her face in a twist and goes straight to the cotton candy man. I never know when, but for her I suspect it will be soon. Bill, 36, 215 pounds, will die in an industrial accident involving molten metal. His face when I say that to him, Jesus. Alex, 23, 117 pounds, will die of an autoimmune disorder. Does not seem surprised. Gus, 14, 98 pounds, will drown. God, I hate it when kids walk in here. On and on, every night, their dazed faces all blurring into one, except the carnival is heading south as summer ends. We're chasing the heat and barreling toward our stopping point in Galveston. I'm working on a cruise ship when we get there. The age guy changed his accent to sound Southern as soon as we hit the Mason-Dixon line. The weight guy is gearing up for Southern women who don't ever want to play at all and most certainly don't want to hear the truth when they're made to. And I can't do accents, and I can't lie. So the last few weeks on the road have been real weird for me. Ever since Tulsa, I'm stuck. Shirley, 56, 186 pounds, will die of thirst. Caden, 21, 125 pounds, will die of thirst. Evan, 28, 146 pounds, will die of thirst. My line dries up right away. They think I'm being an asshole. I can feel sweat collecting on the small of my back and rolling down. The night is way too warm. My mouth feels sticky like cotton candy. Oklahoma City, and it's midnight and still above 90 degrees. Lorna, 39, 159 pounds, thirst. Jake, 47, 180 pounds, thirst. Bobby, 5, 41 pounds, thirst. This crowd is drunker and thinks I'm joking. They drink more. They suggest I drink more. I'm beginning to think we should drink all there is while we still can. Galveston is where I figure it out. I haven't kept up with the news while we've been on the road, and when I get it, it's almost too hysterical to figure. All the papers are saying the same thing. The bill is coming due. We've been putting off doing something about this for years, and now it's too late. I look up at the seagulls in the marina, and I know what they'll all die of. Thirst. I never make it to the cruise ship. Some guy sees me doing my act at our last stop, and he finds me. Tells me he's too smart to die of thirst, and he's right. He tells me he knows what I am. He says I need to come with him. Says a number that makes up my mind for me. I've been on the ship now for 6 months, and I don't think I'll ever get off it. They have some of the best dew collecting and condensing machines in the world. The ship is comfortable, the food is fresh, there are hydroponics on board, and they know what they're doing, but I never see them. The man who brought me here keeps me locked up in my room and visits me once a day. He won't let anyone else in here. He says I'm his surety against the inevitable end. Knowing might be a comfort, but it isn't a surety. And there still might be time to change this. But I know what I know. And everyone on this ship will die of a gunshot wound. Soon. The man who brought me here is named Chris. He's about 45, and I'd say he's $1.30 soaking wet. And he's gonna die after drinking a poison that is neither as painless nor as quick as he was told it would be. I am never wrong. Thank you.
Wow. You know what? I feel thirsty, oddly, after hearing that. What a wonderful collection of readers. Wait, where did Lisa Brown go? Oh my God, she's right here stealing my water. Thank you everybody for coming. That was a delightful, delightful time. I wish that we were all in the mission together, sloshed and loving words and loving hearing them out loud. But know that Litquake is here for you. Litcrawl is happening, that the community has not been shattered by this asshole-ish, hacky, thirsty pandemic. Hang in there, everyone. Go on to the next event and keep on drinking till it feels like you're throwing up on Valencia. Good night, everybody.